Hello, friends, and welcome to our second ever Come Follow Me Minute. I'm excited to jump in and tell you some more stories today related to the restoration, some more background to Joseph Smith history that we're studying this week with Come Follow Me. But first, just want to say thank you. Thank you for the great feedback we received on our first one of these that we did. And I know we've had a couple people like, why can't we share this out of this group? So if you have friends that you know would enjoy this, make sure to invite them to come and join the group. And then one thing that I'll try to do when I have time is throw these onto YouTube so you can share them from there as well. But grateful for this VIP group. Thanks for all that you do. And all the goodness that you shared with me and all your great feedback. But today I want to talk a little bit more about the Smith family, the Smith farm, and a specific fence that may have saved Joseph's life in a couple ways. But first, let's talk just for a minute about Joseph's family. What an incredible family. Now, let me make it clear. We're going to talk about some of the great things, but obviously, Joseph Smith's family wasn't perfect, and there were some trials too, and maybe we'll mention some of those as well. There were some weaknesses. But I love this quote by Elder Neil A. Maxwell highlighting the Smith family. He said, "We should be grateful for model families in the past, such as that of Joseph Smith Sr., who, along with his wife, Lucy Mack Smith, gave a boy prophet love, leadership, example, and support. Suppose after walking back from the theophany at Palmyra, young Joseph Smith had encountered task-oriented, get-the-chores-done, non-listening parents, or a jealous older brother, with all else he had to meet in the way of ridicule and persecution. Could that lad have done his special work without the love and courage of a family that quietly and uncomplainingly agreed to share in his work and in his fate?" Now, ultimately, we know, right, the result of the Smith family and all that they experienced, and they experienced the persecution right there along with Joseph Smith. But I love that their faith in their boy and in their brother, and how much they loved and supported him. And I just love the Smith family. So many things about the Smith family that I love. But again, let me be clear that the Smith family wasn't perfect. They struggled with many things, including financially. We talked about their bad luck last time on our first Come Follow Me Minute. We talked about their bad luck and the bad choices that they made, and financially they just really struggled. Lucy, remember, she says as they enter Palmyra, and in the late 1816, that they had 2 cents to their name. Like, they got there with 2 cents left, which meant that they couldn't buy anything yet, even on credit. They couldn't buy any land, and so they had to get to work as a family, and they did. They started working. In fact, Joseph says that it required the exertion of all that were able to render any assistance for the support of the family. So everyone chipped in the ways that they could. Joseph Sr. began working as a hired hand on different farms nearby while they were renting in Palmyra. And Lucy painted oilcloth that was used for tablecloths or table runners or aprons or other things. She painted oilcloth for that. Joseph turns 11 right after he gets there, and he gets involved with the children doing some things as well. They recalled they would push a cart, just this homemade cart with homemade root beer and other snacks, and they'd push it around Palmyra and sell it to those around the area. So industrious, right? Like they started to work and try to support themselves, and ultimately, after 2 years, they were able to buy a farm north of Palmyra, and they called it the Manchester Fields. In fact, it wasn't actually in Palmyra, their farm. It was outside in Manchester, or what was known as Manchester at the time. And they buy it in the North Woods. Now, I want to talk more about their farm here in just a second, but first, I think it's important to highlight that there were people in town that didn't get along with the Smiths. In fact, people came back later on some who opposed the church, came back to Palmyra to get the behind the scenes, like the backstory. What were the Smiths like before this whole church thing started? And they came and interviewed a bunch of people in Palmyra. Now, we know that many of the people who believed, supported, and followed Joseph Smith left Palmyra, right? They went with Joseph and traveled. So the people left behind were the people that a lot of them didn't get along with Joseph Smith. And there were some that didn't even care or didn't even know them, right? Didn't even know who they were. But a lot of the people who they interviewed said things like, well, they were a terrible family. They were lazy. And that Joseph Smith Sr. was a drunk, right? And among other things, right? That they said about the Smith family. This was published in a book called Mormonism Unveiled, where they came back to interview these people. So a lot of negativity, right, connected to the Smith family. Now, some of those things maybe in some ways true. We do know that Joseph Smith Sr. drank, and in Hiram's patriarchal blessing, it actually mentions him being helpful to his father at a time when he was drunk, and so that's the truth, right? Not that he was a drunk. That just because you drank at that time didn't mean you were a drunk, right? And so some of these things were stretched, and some unkind things were said about the Smith family. But let me show you some things that we do know, right, for sure about the Smith family. They buy 100 acres, and in 2 years they clear, in a place called the Manchester Woods. So if it's a place of woods, then obviously that means there must be trees, and lots of them. They clear 60 of those acres in 2 years. So 30 acres, just in that first summer, they clear 30 acres. Now, some horticulturists estimate that they probably cleared around 6,000 trees. Now, that's incredible, right? Now, they're doing that while still working as hired hands on other people's farms, on neighboring farms. So they were doing this in their spare time. They were clearing this ground and turning this wooded area into a place where they could farm as a family. 6,000 trees, like that, just an incredible. If you've ever dug out a tree, or tried to cut down a tree and dig out the stump, or if you've ever even just tried to pull out a bush, or even a tough weed, right? Like, you understand that sometimes that's not easy work, right? And they did this in 2 years, and began to farm on that land. Now, what did they do with those 6,000 trees? Well, they built a log cabin with those 6,000 trees, where the Smiths and 9 of their children ultimately end up living. There's 2 stories, and we know that from description, right, that Lucy Mack gives, and we know where it was built because when they were scanning the area, the log home had been torn down, but when they were scanning the area to build a replica, they actually find a gold bead in the ground, and which was significant because we knew that Lucy owned a gold necklace, a gold beaded necklace, and they find this gold bead, and that's how we knew kind of the idea of where that was at. And so it's 2 stories, and you can see the replica built today, 2 stories there on the Smith farm. The parents stayed below and probably had, when Lucy came, Lucy probably slept down there with her parents. Then upstairs there was a room for the boys, where all 6 of the boys would sleep, and then a room for the 2 girls as well. So they built a home, and then they probably used some of that wood for firewood during the winters, and then they also built 6,500 foot fence. Now, again, another task, right, to build a 6,500 foot log wood fence, right, around their property. And so industrious, hardworking people, right, they're building and creating this home. Now, this fence, I think, is significant for a few reasons. One, it's the same fence that Joseph's climbing over, and he falls down after he's been up all night with hanging out with, slumber party with Moroni. He falls over the fence, and Moroni shows up again and tells him to go back and tell his father. Right? So there's one story where we get that fence. Another one is kind of interesting, shared with us by Lucy Mack Smith again. She says that around the age of 14, again, we don't know if this happened before Joseph Smith's first vision or after, but around the age of 14, Joseph was off doing some errands, and it was late at night. He's coming home from doing some errands, and as he's about to get to the door, and walk into their log home, he hears 2 loud gunshots, bang, bang. And he's like, whoa, right? And he dives into his house, Joseph does. And the family comes running, right? They gather together and like, what was that? And they were gunshots, right? And so they go out and try to see if they can find who's shooting, right? And who's shooting at Joseph. And Joseph's like, I don't know, right? And they run out and they find under a wagon a place where a man had been laying down, and or at least evidence of where a man was laying. And as they're like, whoa, they don't see any evidence of the guy, or they don't know who it is, and they go inside, and the next morning they find a cow that was in between where the man was with the gun and where Joseph was at the front door, and that cow had been shot in the head and the neck. And so that cow it stood in the way that saved Joseph's life. Holy cow, right? And Joseph was safe from that first assassination attempt. And they never knew, right? They never found out why or who or what happened there. But Joseph was shot at when he was around 14 years old. And that fence is what kept that cow in there, right? They had built that fence to keep cattle and to kind of have this property line that would keep animals inside. And that cow was within the fence, kept within that fence, and ultimately stood in the way to protect Joseph. So kind of an interesting, kind of crazy story there. Again, never found out why that happened, but Joseph was protected. They also, on that land, they planted 200 apple trees, and once they had got it clear, we already talked about the home. Let's see, there was something else. Oh, they also tap 1,500 maple sugar trees, which was a lot of work for them, especially considering that 40 gallons of sap would only produce 1 gallon of syrup. So they had to syrup. They'd have to collect 40 gallons before they'd get that 1 gallon of syrup that they could go and sell or use. In 1820, the property value is estimated today at about $700. That's their mortgage on that home that they bought was about $100 a year. When they left around 1830, the property value had risen from $700 to $1,300. So they didn't prove they built a farm here. Now, does that sound like a lazy people that all they've spent their time doing is going around and getting drunk? Not necessarily. I think they had a lot on their plate, right? Working and trying to provide and farming, and there was a lot to do. And they were a busy family, industrious family that worked hard to lift and support each other. And I just want to talk about that idea of the Smith family and how they were a support to Joseph. His brother William said this. He said, "We always had family prayer. Since I can remember, I well remember Father used to carry his spectacles in his vest pocket. And when the boys saw him feel for his specs, we knew that this was a signal to get ready for prayer. And if we did not notice it, Mother would say, 'William,' or whoever was negligent, whoever was the negligent one, 'get ready for prayer.' And after the prayer we would sing a song. William remembered prayers both night and in the morning, and stressed that nightly prayers were regularly accompanied by a hymn and also scripture study. Favorite evenings and that they would sing a lot. It's also, I learned recently that it's believed that some of those devotionals that they would have, they actually would go into the grove together as a family and read and sing and pray there. So maybe not uncommon for Joseph to go and find a place in the grove, a quiet place for communion with heaven. He had done it with his family. He does say it was his first time on his own doing praying out loud, but maybe he had already been there with his family and had great experiences. Afterwards, after he receives that first vision, and then after Moroni comes, he would sit down with his family and he would tell them about his experiences. It got to the point where he would say, "Don't tell anybody," right? Because of the persecution that they were experiencing. Joseph would say, "Let's just keep this as a family secret, and not tell too many people about what's going on. And the Smith family was cautious to protect Joseph and also to protect themselves from the persecution that they had seen from Joseph sharing about the first vision initially. Lucy Mack said this. She said, "From this time forth, Joseph continued to receive instruction from the Lord, and we to get the children together every evening for the purpose of listening while he imparted the same to the family. I presume we presented an aspect as singular as any family that ever lived upon the face of the earth, all seated in a circle, father, mother, sons, and daughters, and giving the most profound attention to a boy, 18 years of age, who had never read the Bible through in his life. For he was much less inclined to the perusal of books than any of the rest of our children, but far more given to meditation and deep study." And she goes on to say, "We were now confirmed in the opinion that God was about to bring to light something upon which we could stay our minds, or that would give us a more perfect knowledge of the plan of salvation. This caused us greatly to rejoice. The sweetest union and happiness pervaded our family, and peace and tranquility reigned in our midst. During our evening conversations, Joseph would occasionally give us some of the most amusing recitals that could be imagined. He would describe the ancient inhabitants of this continent, their dress, their mode of traveling, and the animals upon which they rode, their cities and their buildings with every particular. He would describe their mode of warfare as also their religious worship. This he would do with as much ease, seemingly, as if he had spent his whole life with them." I love imagining that, right? Imagining Joseph sitting down and teaching his family, and then imagining me and my family sitting down and reading the scriptures and maybe sharing some similar stories. Those peaceful and beautiful moments gathered together as family or friends and sharing the gospel, sharing truth and stories and talking. I love how she describes it as just this peace, happiness, and tranquility that reigned in their midst as a family. And that's something I'd like to do with my family. I want peace and happiness and tranquility. With our 5 little kids, it's rare to have moments of peace or tranquility. There's a lot of commotion in our little home, but love those moments when we share and feel the Spirit and are happy together. I love this model of a family as Elder Maxwell put it, this model family that again wasn't perfect and struggled financially and struggled even later on. William and Joseph struggle. They don't always get along. They actually get in a fist fight once, and where Joseph gets caught taking off his jacket, and William just starts punching Joseph in the face, and they struggle. Right? They're not a perfect family. It wasn't perfect, but they tried, and they did their best with what they'd been given, and the Lord blessed them and allowed this family to do an incredible work together. I know that our families can do incredible things together as we work together and as we seek the Lord and as we follow Him, as we're striving to do with Come Follow Me. I understand that in our home, Come Follow Me is not the easiest to do, but there have been some sweet moments, and I'm so grateful for Come Follow Me. And I just want to end with one more thought of this Smith family and how they believed in Joseph. And this comes from William, the one who punched him in the face later on. But he said this about his family. He said, "We never knew we were bad folks until Joseph told his vision. We were considered respectable till then. But at once people began to circulate falsehoods and stories, and those still circulate today about the Smith family. But then when he was asked, did you not doubt Joseph's testimony sometimes? William answered this. He said, no, we all had the most implicit confidence in what he said. He was a truthful boy. Father and mother believed him, and why should not the children? I suppose if he had told crooked stories about other things, we might have doubted his words about the plates. But Joseph was a truthful boy. That father and mother believed his report and suffered persecution for that belief shows that he was truthful. No, we never doubted his words for 1 minute. And I think that's a beautiful summary of the Smith family and their support of their third son, Joseph Smith, Jr. who had a sweet vision and was guided and directed of the Lord. And thank goodness for that good family who suffered with him, were persecuted with him, and who trusted him all the way to the end. That first family suffered a lot, and I think they should be honored for all that they gave for us to have what we have in our families today, which is the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ restored again to the earth today. I truly believe that it has been, and that Joseph was the beginning of that ongoing restoration today. And I love being able to learn more about it together, and I share that with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you, friends. Thanks for jumping on, and thanks for sharing where you're watching from. I see some people from Alabama and Rexburg and all over, so thank you for jumping on. Thanks for your comments. Again, thank you for your support and bringing more people to come and find these messages. I would invite you to continue to invite people to come and find this, but also if you have questions, let me know. I want to do a couple of these a week. In fact, I want to do another one on Joseph's experience in between his visits from Moroni and in between his first vision and Moroni's first vision. I want to talk more about that, and so I'll try to jump on again another time this week and share some more stories from the prophet Joseph Smith and share my love for him. But anyways, thanks, friends. Appreciate your thoughts and your questions in the comments. I'll go through and read these later, and we'll see you next time. Bye.